And so if we don't know how to talk to people, then it's all shut down, right? Okay, tonight is going to be real practical. Melanie will teach first, and then I will teach second. But I can tell you that what she's going to share tonight was one of the greatest revelations in leadership that I have ever. It did more for me. There were people working on our church team that I didn't even like. I just had to love them because I was the pastor. But they were driving me crazy. I didn't like to talk to them. I didn't like dealing with them. Just because I didn't understand them. And I was thinking that, they didn't understand me, and I knew I didn't understand them. And then when I heard this teaching, it was like the lights came on for me, and I was like, oh, whoa, hold on here just a second. These people are not as evil. Maybe I don't want to kick them out of the church after all. It was understanding. Does that make sense? It was understanding. So it's going to be about communication. Melanie can take it from here, and then I'll talk a little bit when she's through. Come on up, Melanie, and share a little revelation on this. Help them like you helped me.
I had a selfish reason for wanting to help you.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about it. Okay. Let me get all set up here and ready to go. Normally, I do this. I've been doing this for what, Lord goodness, 20 years maybe, something like that. And I have never done it this way. So, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little handicapped in a way because we always do it at tables, and it is a test that you take, and then we have an exercise that we do with everybody, and it's a self-discovery. And so we talked to the Statons about that. We had decided not to do that way. It takes 3 hours to do that. So then last night we were talking again, and it was like, you know what? I could actually just do a summary of the results. And I think that you won't get all of it, all out of it that we would normally get, but you will get a great deal out of it. And you will get enough out of it, I think, that it will change you, and it will change the way you think about other people. You're going to want to take notes, because usually all of the stuff that I say is in the booklet that you get. And so since you don't have those booklets, you're going to want to take notes. I can possibly even send some handouts back, maybe at some point in the future if you want more information. And I can give you a website also that you can go to and you can get more information from. Like he said, the Word is the foundation for everything, and we know that, and we are Word people, okay? We are definitely Word people. This is a secular instrument that I had to go get certified for. It took a 3-day certification thing. But immediately, even though it was presented by secular people, it's a secular instrument, I immediately saw creation in all of it. And it was like, oh my goodness, this information is the way God wired us. And so although it's a secular instrument, it has spiritual foundation, and you'll see that as we talk about it. We have done it at marriage retreats. It has saved marriages in our church. It has definitely changed the atmosphere of the workplace and the office. It has saved children, the way parents interacted with their children and the way that they learned, especially in our home. We are all different. All 4 of us are different. And so we have learned how the others hear and process. And so it has saved marriages. It has saved jobs. It has saved parents. That's how far-reaching it is. It's just amazing. So, I am going to be pointing at her. Normally I operate it myself, and so if we have to go back or whatever, just understand. It's called a Real Colors Communication Assessment. RealColors.org is the website. So if you want to go learn more information, there's books you can order about parenting, about stress, how to handle stress with each color. There are books you can order about the 4 different colors in the home and all this kind of thing. So what it is, well, we'll just start from the beginning. Go ahead. What is communication? That's not a trick question, but let's get some answers here. What is communication? Two-way street. Two-way street, definitely. And every answer is probably going to be right. There's just many ways to talk about it. What is communication?
Sending and receiving information.
All right, she said listening. You said sending and receiving information. Sending and receiving information. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Yes.
It's verbal and non-verbal.
It's verbal and nonverbal. Absolutely. So, are we connecting all this? Verbal, nonverbal, sending, receiving information, listening, two-way street. Okay, absolutely. Our next question. In which areas of your life is communication vital? Everywhere. There's not an area of your life communication is not vital. On your job, especially because I'm speaking now to people in a church that are growing a church. You're connecting with people. You're teaching home Bible studies. So especially in what we're talking about tonight, communication is vital. You can either connect with those people or you can abort the process early on by how you communicate with them. Marriages, everything, every area of life, communication is vital. All right, next question. How well do you think you communicate? I'm gonna get a little tricky on you now. I'm gonna pick on the ones I know. Sam. The question is, how well do you think you communicate?
Depends on the situation.
On a scale, save it. On a scale from 1 to 10, what would you rate yourself at?
Well, I would say probably a 7, but it does depend.
Okay, and I won't ask you to elaborate on what it depends on. We won't go there. He said a 7. Kristen, do you agree with that? Just about depends on the situation.
I
Okay.
think in some instances he can be a 10, in others he can be
8.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that. Others, he can be a...
5, 6. She went real. Her voice got really soft on me.
sometimes he can be a 10, others 5.
Okay, that was good. You guys illustrated my point very well. That's a typical married answer. The guys think that they're a lot higher than the women think that they are usually. Usually that's the way it happens. Sister State. How well do you think you communicate?
It depends on what it is. Probably not very well.
So what number would you give yourself? A 4? Okay, do you agree? So what? Okay, very typical. He said he thinks she's about a 7. So she said she communicated about a 4. He said, no, I think about a 7. And that's very typical also. The wives usually rate themselves lower than the husbands rate. Okay, here's the deal. Well, I'm not going to talk about what the deal is just right now. We'll talk about the deal in a minute. Let's go to the next slide. Many people assume they are communicating when they are giving out information. All right? This is not true.
Right.
Communication is effective only when there is connection. It has really nothing to do with what kind of information you're giving or receiving. And I know you said that, and I'm not saying you were wrong, because that is part of it. That is part of it. But regardless of how you send or receive it, if there's not connection, communication has not happened. So I can stand up here and I can talk to you all day long because I know how I hear and I process. And I can do it my way, and the people who are like me will get it. But there are 3 other groups of you sitting out there that will not get what I'm saying unless I go to your way of communicating and approach you on your level. So what we're going to talk about for a few minutes, what are those 4 ways? What are the characteristics of those 4 things? What are you? You're going to figure out what you are. Normally when we do this, you do that by taking the test and the thing in the book, but we don't have that. You'll figure out what you are, I think, without it. And then you're going to figure out what everybody that lives in your house is, and what the people are whom you work with here in church, and what the people are on your job, and who the people are that you encounter in the street. You're going to figure that out, and then you're going to see how you've been turning them off and why they've been turning you off. Okay? We're going to do all that in an hour. Isn't that awesome? All right. Many people assume they are heard the same way that they hear and process information. This is not always true. This is RCCA, and that's what you're not getting, but anyway, RCCA will help you understand the 4 ways. That's what I just talked about. You can go through the next slide because I'm not going to go over that one. I'm going to go to the next one. After this assessment, you can expect significant improvement in your skill involving, and you'll have to go a little faster here, the ability to recognize your strengths and the strengths of others, the ability to build rapport quickly with clients, peers, family, co-workers, and students, the ability to listen in the language of other colors and people and speak in the language of other colors and people, all right? The an enhanced ability to understand how others process information and the ability to recognize the learning styles of others. Let's stop right here. All those colors, those different fonts. How many of you like that? Be honest, raise your hands high. Okay, everybody that can, try to turn around and look at who liked it. Okay? How many of you did not like it? Right, exactly. Okay, raise your hands high if you did not like it. How many of you don't care one way or the other? Okay. All right, thank you very much. That's key. That's very key. Were you the only one that did not like it, or was
My buddy over here.
But you weren't brave about it. I didn't see your hand. No.
I'm biased. I'm a graphic designer, so this stuff sticks out.
I see.
I'm trained not to like it.
You're a graphic designer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have an excuse. Your color. Don't be ashamed of it. God didn't make a bad color. Okay. If you have a pen and a piece of paper, I want you to hold your pen. All right, now put it in the other hand and write your name. Write your name in cursive. No. With the other hand. With the non-dominant hand.
With the non-dominant.
If you're right-handed, write it with your left hand. With the pen, cursive. Can you read it?
Hey, Bradley.
Is it good? Or is it bad?
So bad.
All right. Okay, let me ask you a question. If you were to leave here tonight and the unthinkable happened, and you get in a wreck, and you lose the hand that you write with, and they have to cut it off to save you, what would happen? You would learn to write with your non-dominant hand, right? You would learn to do it. It would get a lot better than it is right now. So, right now, right this minute, what you've got to do is get in your head, communication is not about me. Say, it's not about me.
What about me?
You know how you communicate. You know how you hear. You know how you process. So it's not about you. You know that. It's about everybody else. So say it again. It's not about me.
What about me?
People who hide behind the excusable, that's just how I am. That's just, people have to understand, this is just the way I am. This is how I was born. This is my culture. This is the way I was taught. You can't hide behind that. Because just like you would learn to write with your non-dominant hand if you had to, you can learn to speak and to hear in the way that other people process information. All right? Say it one more time. It's not about me.
It's not about me.
Those of you who are married, say it's about my spouse. Those of you who are parents, say it's about my children. Those of you who are children, say it's about my parents.
It's about my parents.
Now, all of you in the building say it's about the lost people of the DC metro area.
The lost people of the DC metro area.
All right? It's not about you. All right, we can do that. We can go quickly through this again. Okay, that's again and again and again and again. This is whenever you take the test. And music is playing because that really bugs people like Sam. And so that's another part of the test. And there are some people it helps them concentrate, but it's Sam and, I'm sorry, Bradley, yes. But Sam and Bradley, the music would irritate the daylights out of them if they were taking the test. Okay, but we're not taking the test. Keep going. This is how to score. This is all of that. Keep going, keep going, keep going. All right, stop right there. I'm going to catch up with you. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, and then you sit in a group when we're doing the test, and you brainstorm your colors, values, needs, strengths, and joys, but you're not going to do that right now because you haven't taken the test and you don't know all that. So what we're going to do now is do what we normally do at the end whenever we get back together, and we're going to talk about how the different colors speak. There are 4 colors. Not yet. Yeah, right there. Just stop right there. There are 4 colors. The colors are gold, blue, green, and orange. And the reason why we use colors is because there is no bad color. It's not like one color is better than another color. And so they use colors because it's just a very non-threatening way to describe the 4 types of communication. Okay, so the first color, and it's hard to see because the lights are on, and this is on a white background. Normally it's not quite as hard. Can we turn, are these on separate switches? Can we turn these off maybe? That might help. The first group that we're going to talk about are the golds. Okay? Sam is probably high gold. All right? No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You've also got some green in there. This is another thing that you need to, know. You're not just one color. We always want to know what your second color is as well, because knowing what many times you will hop in and out of one color to another depending on the situation. That's why you said it depends on the situation as to how well you communicate. Depending on the situation, you are approaching this from a couple of places usually. Usually we start out with our intrinsic nature, our intrinsic way we communicate, and we go through school and our teachers tell us how we're supposed to act, and we come to church and the preacher tells us how we're supposed to act, and our parents tell us how we're supposed to act. And so we learn all of these things that we should and should not do, and then we think that's who we are. But it isn't.
Right.
Who you are is who you are.
Right. Sure.
It's how you were born. We have to learn to suppress the bad traits, the wrong traits of our nature. And we have to learn to enhance the good ones. But to say that you have to take the person that you were and put them in the closet and lock the door in order to be saved is going against the Word of God and the whole principles that God established from creation. He made you the way you are.
Amen.
So we're going to talk about these principles and these traits. We will talk about the positives and we'll talk about the negatives. But here's what you have to understand. Society has told us this is good, this is bad. The church has said, this is good, this is bad. Not speaking against the church, I'm just saying how some messages are expounded. Okay, our parents have said, this is good, this is bad. And yes, there are many things that are good and that are bad, but what we are doing, we're throwing many times the baby out with the bathwater. And we're saying, who I am is bad. It's not bad. So now, again, everybody say, it's not about me.
It's not
It's
about
not
me.
about me. Okay, so goals. What are the values of goals? They value organization. They value honesty. And you can just stop right there. They value structure and schedule, consistency, hard work, punctuality. A goal says, if you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. Anybody, raise your hand if you identify. Okay? Okay? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that identified with that. Okay, chances are if you identify with that statement and you feel strongly about that, you're probably a high gold. Okay? They value tradition, not yet. Practicality, neatness, perfection, rules, and order. Goals are your list, people. The goals in this audience tonight are very frustrated because I don't have the book. And they don't have the book. And they don't like it if there's not an agenda. And they don't really care for it. It throws them off. That if something is supposed to start at 5 and it doesn't, it throws them off. Are you feeling validated? You don't know what I don't know what I'm. So this is a goal, but now here's what you have to understand. There are 3 other kinds of communication. So while I'm saying all this, everybody say it's not about me.
Not about me.
Okay, all right. But you have to understand that when a goal is in charge, punctuality, neatness, organization is a character issue. And people who are late, unorganized, not neat, to them they have a character flaw. My dad was a gold. My dad was the most, his next color would have been a blue. He was which you will find that's about feelings. That's people who love people. My dad was a great people person, but he was first of all a gold. And he always told me, anybody who is late is selfish. They don't value anybody else's time but their own. He said there's never an excuse for being late unless it's an illness or a wreck. I mean, and that's the way he felt about it. It was a character trait to him if somebody else was late. Blue people, and so my dad was conflicted because his second color was blue. But blue people are not that way. Okay? Blue people say people's needs and feelings come ahead of whatever the schedule says. So blue people think it's a character flaw if you're so worried about being on time that you can't stop and do whatever needs to be done. So you see the conflict? Oh, is the light coming on a little bit? Okay, we're not saying what is right and what is wrong here. So get right and wrong out of your head. We're saying the way it is. God made all of us the way we are. Okay, let's move to the next thing. What are the strengths of goals? They are punctual. They are very hard workers. They're organized. They know and follow rules. We call goals the list people. Second, we call them the rules people. They love procedures. They love processes. They love rules. It keeps their world in order. Okay? They are dependable. They're fair. They're reliable. They're thorough. They're consistent. They are people who usually are money savers, and they love procedures. These are goals. What are their needs? What does a gold person need in order for you to establish connection with them? Here's what they need. They need a schedule. They need stability. They need direction. They need the bottom line. They need a to-do list. They need respect, and they need planning. In a meeting situation, they need an agenda. My husband is a gold. In our early marriage, we had 3 issues that we would discuss from time to time. We never could arrive at a solution to these issues. After I started teaching this one day, and it was like every time one of them would crop up and we would try to talk about it, the other 2 would intrude. Okay? So we arrived at one of those issues one day, and here we were again, and we couldn't get anything, and it was just butting heads on those 3 things every single time. And I had been teaching this, and I thought, he's cold. So it was a Saturday. I'll never forget it. I went to my computer, and I typed out the problem of the 3 issues, and I put problem, and number 1, number 2, number 3. And under that, I put each issue, and I put A, B, C for possible solutions. And then under that, I put a section that said plan of implementation. Number 1, number 2, number 3. And so I went to him and I said, in 20 minutes, we're going to meet on the patio and we're going to have a marriage retreat, me and you. And I said, and so we're going to talk about this. And he was like, okay, you know, he wasn't smiling that day. And so we go to the patio, and I had run this off, and I had an agenda for him, an agenda for me. And so what happened is we talked about number 1, and he was fine with it because it didn't escalate. It didn't go off into rabbit trails. We talked about number 1. He knows what I'm telling. We talked about the possible solutions, and then we talked about how we were going to implement some of those solutions. We went to number 2. We talked about, from that day, we have never revisited those 3 issues. It didn't escalate. There was no loud voices. There was no argument. We talked about it rationally. He knew, he had it right there. He knew where the discussion was going to go next. He was fine. We worked it out. That's been 15 years ago. We have never revisited those 3 issues. Everybody say it again. It's not about me.
It's not about me.
It's who I'm trying to connect with. Okay. What are the joys of a gold? Here are the joys of a gold. They love to finish their list. If you want to get something out of a gold, help them finish their list. And when they check that last thing off, they're fine. Their minds are free. But don't ask them to have a party before their list is done. That won't work. They love recognition for a job well done. And they love completing tasks early. That recognition for a job well done, I don't think I have the strength. I think I'm getting too old to illustrate it like I always have. But we have a lady in our church who's elderly now. She doesn't do it anymore. But we used to, our church is large, and our big social event of the year was a Christmas banquet. And we would have, in the later years, in those last years before we finally disbanded it, we would have 1,200 people at the Christmas banquet. And what we did for the Christmas banquet, we rented a place downtown. We had it catered. They bought tickets, and we served buffet style. They'd have to get up by table, go get their food, and then we'd have a entertainment. That was the Christmas banquet. Laverne was always in charge of organizing the Christmas banquet. And so when you have 1,100 and 1,200 people who are going through buffet lines, then that could take up all of your time if you're not organized. So she made sure that she knew exactly how many buffet lines we would have. I think we wound up having 4 or 6 there toward the end in those big years. And we would have 4 or 6 buffet lines. She had her hostesses assigned which table, and she knew exactly what they were going to do when she pointed to them, and it all worked out. And so we'd get in there, and it'd be time for the meal, and they would pray. I know it, I'm going to try to make this. And they would pray over the meal, and Laverne would go into action, okay? And because she was on mission. She was like, hey, baby, I love your jacket. Brother Anthony, we served 1,157 people in 17 minutes and 16 seconds. That's what Brother Anthony would say. people. In 17 minutes and 16 seconds, can we give Laverne a hand? And everybody would just clap. And she would just smile. And that's all it took. And she'd do it all again the next year. That's all it took. That's all it took. All a goal needs to be appreciated is just recognition for a job well done. Just recognize their efficiency. Recognize their efficiency. Write that down. You've got to have a goal. They keep the world in order. Just recognize their efficiency. Recognize them for a job well done. And is that not the truth? How do they speak? Okay, goals are not rude. They are communicating through their color. How do they speak? They cut the small talk. They get right to the point, and you can go fast on this because this is a lot. They reach conclusions, make up their mind quickly. They want the conversation in order. They don't like rabbit trails, blues. They want an agenda, blues, and oranges. They establish guidelines or goals for follow-up. They show love and concern by discussing ways to solve others' problems. They talk about how well they or others are fulfilling their duties, and they focus on how efficient things are. And I would like for you all to raise your hands and praise the Lord while I get a trigger. All right, next. How do you need to speak to goals? Everybody say it's not about me.
Not about
Say
me.
it's about the goals. How do you need to speak to them? Okay, here, let's go. Give straightforward direction. We go fast here. Get right to the point. Don't ramble. Use references to the past and how it's been done before. Don't get sidetracked. Make sure the conversation stays in order. Follow an agenda. Show sincere appreciation for what they do. Make sure they know how important they are to the organization, the marriage, the ministry, etc. And talk about how they can keep things going smoothly. And a good way for you to remember this might be to come up and take a picture with your phone. So if we want to delegate someone to do that, then they could text the picture to everybody else later, and that way it wouldn't, then you can remember this. And we can even pull this up after this is over and get the other step that you missed. So, any questions for a goal? How many of you in the audience think you're gold? Yeah, I know your other gold color too. I'll tell you. Raise your hands high again. Would you mind standing if you can? Because I want the congregation to see who thinks you're gold. Because you've got to know how to put these people in this way.
Remember, it's all about gold.
Because in heaven, the streets are.
Jody.
What if you can identify a lot of traits in you, but you don't feel like you are like strict gold?
Then you're probably not primarily gold.
Okay, so there's some things you did right now that I'm not like.
No.
I like rabbit trails.
Where you learned to be gold was in learning to be a teacher.
Okay.
That's where you learned to be gold. Okay, good. You may be seated. Goals. Some of the negatives of goals. Goals are usually your control freaks. They think that if you don't do it their way, it's not done right. They are usually the people who are extremely critical verbally of people who don't do it their way. The education system of America was created for gold people. We'll talk about that more in a second. Okay? Any questions before we move to the next color?
At the end, are you going to go through the colors and have everybody stand up after they see all of them?
We will do that, yes. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, next, blue. Their values, their needs, their strengths, and their joys. There is a reason why it will come up the way it will. Go ahead. How many of you identify with this font and way it came up better than the gold font? Okay, that's okay. Good, be honest. Blues are about feelings. Golds are lists and efficiency. Blues are about feelings and people. Family, honesty, loyalty, romance, tolerance, fair, understanding. understanding. They want to please others. They're people pleasers. They're loving. They are poets. They're cooperative. They communicate. It's very important the way that they communicate. They're usually your touchers, attentive. I can tell I'm in a church with blue, lots of blue in the ministry team because you're a church of huggers. That's a blue trait, okay? And you say, well, everybody should be that way. Well, that's where our prejudice comes in, okay? Because, well, we'll talk about it in a minute, but now your green people are going, just saying. Everybody say it's not about me. Okay, all right, just saying. Okay, so here is our blue stuff going on. Feeling people. Let me go back to goals a second. Goals are usually in an occupation that requires a lot of order. Most of your accountants are goals. In this church, I would think, that's why I know that you've got a lot of goal in you, Sam, because of your job. Engineers are goals. Administrative assistants are goals. Washington, D.C. is an area with a tremendous gold population because they are running offices. This is the government center of America. Okay, so you have got probably, and we're going to talk about the percentage of colors throughout the population in a minute, but I would think in the DC area that would even be skewed a little bit in favor of golds. I would think you would have more of a gold population in this area than the other colors. But anyway, now we're on blue. Okay, you're going to have a lot less blue here than any other color in the government sector. Anyway, there has never been a blue president. We've had green, orange, and gold presidents, but we've never had a blue president. Why? They can't survive the political process. Their feelings get hurt. Yeah, they would be totally crushed. Their character would be crushed because a blue is very concerned about being a people pleaser. They're honest. You're right. They're honest. They would make it. Okay, so let's go. Let's talk about blues and how they speak. Okay, they love to talk. Okay, blues. Oh, okay. Let me talk about blues a second. Hi, how are you doing? I like your coat. You know what? It's really a cold place here. It's not cold like that down south. We don't have big heavy coats like that because it's really hot. In fact, it's so hot in the summertime. It's like the Philippines, you know. He just got back from the Philippines. He just got back this past Monday. They had this crusade there, and I told him the truth. There was 35,000 there on Sunday, and 5,000 got the Holy Ghost. Can you believe that? It was incredible. I mean, y'all are in revival here too, and so it's like we got to go out. We got to knock on doors because we got to get people in. And what's your hours? When do you work? Because we got to knock on doors. It started out with I like your coat. They love to talk. They ramble. They talk about how they feel about things. They take time to listen. They are your listeners. And they write their appreciation. They're your card writers. They're your thoughtful population. They avoid issues that might end up in conflict or debate. They are verbally expressive and outgoing. They ramble, get off the subject. They're willing to talk about anything and everything. They prefer dealing with people concerns rather than facts. As a matter of fact, the golds deal with the facts all the time. The blues think that that's extremely insensitive. They are very sympathetic. They pay attention to nonverbal communication. They remain very general. They personalize the situation. They want to be helpful. They concern themselves with how what they say will affect others. It's a big deal to them. Blues are our floral designers. A lot of blues are our actors. Okay? Blues are our artists. They're the ones who create beauty in the world. They're your interior designers. Okay? Blues are your counselors. Many counselors who are blue go into the profession, and many times the gold requirements of that profession kill them because they end up having to fill out more reports than they feel that they're helping people, and so it causes them to, and same way with teaching. They will go into teaching, but the gold requirements will kill them. Blue people are your lovers. They are your huggers. They're your people who care. nurses, many times, want to go into the nursing profession. Okay? In this church, you guys are people lovers. You are a tremendously blue church. That's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing. What you have to do, all of you who are blue though, you have to say, okay, what are the negative traits about me so that I can pull back on those and strengthen the positive traits. The first thing the blue people has to understand is it's not about me. It's about the population I'm trying to reach. Okay? Next, how do we speak to blue people? You relate what you're saying to feelings and people. I have noticed in talking with Brother Staten that he speaks in stories. He speaks in stories. If we're talking about something, he relates it to a story. That's his blue side. And he has a predominant blue side. That's his blue side coming out. Okay, if I'm talking to Brother Staten, I need to relate what I'm saying to stories, to people, to feelings. If you're talking, it's not about me. It's about him. Your job is to figure out what kind of person you're talking to and relate this to what you feel they are. You can do that by asking questions. What do you do? What is your profession? What do you like? Okay? All right. Avoid open criticism of a blue. They take it very personally. Put people needs ahead of procedures. This is where goals struggle with blues. They say, well, we've got this procedure in place. And the blue says, but it's about people. Okay. Use references to how it will help others. Try not to rely on facts to make your point. Leave room for input and questions. Ask them how they feel about the issue. Reassure them through body language. Keep your promises. Talk about results in terms of their effects on others. Remind them how important they are to the overall good and recognize their creativity. Okay? Any questions for a blue? First of all, who thinks you're blue? Who thinks you're predominant blue? Would you stand? All right, cool. Very good. You may be seated. And if at the end, when you all stand, it changes, that's fine too. Okay, because it might. Anybody have any questions about blues? Especially since your pastor feels like he is a lot blue. Yes?
I have a question. Could you be gold on the inside and have a cover of the...
Yes. It's called learned behavior. It's called learned behavior. It's called feeling like you're supposed to be something and acting that way, even though that's not who you are in here. But now let me tell you what's going to happen. When you get under stress, you cannot pretend. Your true color is going to exhibit itself when you're under stress. You cannot pretend. Okay? And that's why it's important to know who you are. Many people feel when they get under severe stress and they revert back to something, they think, oh my goodness, I've sinned. No. This is who you are. Okay? What you have to learn to do is control that. And be good with who you are. Because that way you can reach those people in the population a whole lot better. Okay? We're going to move on. Yes? No. Because the blues wouldn't have related to that child. They relate to everything being all over the place. It all runs together. Values, needs, strengths, and joys, it's all one thing to them.
So, you said that the joys are more.
Go back to. This is very good. This is a great example. Okay, right there. All right. I couldn't put it in a chart, in a column, because it's all one thing to them. Okay. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Are we going to be able to find out what color we are?
Well, just from my description.
Okay.
That's the only way. That's the part that I hate we don't have the books, but just, huh? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes. There are people, the highest highest number when you take the test, the highest number is a 48, the lowest number is a 12. So what that means is we all have at least 12 of every single color. The first time I took the test, I was only like 2 points apart in my top two. And then my bottom was like 21, and I mean my third was like 21, and then the fourth was like 17, which is almost nothing. So yes, it's possible to be very close in two. But you'll find that when you're under stress, you're going to find out you're not as close as you thought you were, because that dominant one is probably going to rise to the surface. Yes?
I don't want to derail, but one of them to communicate was try not to rely on facts, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that in a situation that requires facts? Right? Say you're talking about a financial situation where maybe we get off. If you don't have I don't want to derail, but you see what I'm saying?
Okay, would you remember that, and let's ask that question at the end, because I want to explain the other two colors, and then I will be able to use more examples. Okay, so please don't let me forget that. You'll have to remind me. Okay, so we're going now to greens. All right, we're moving on to greens. What do greens value? And we will find that out here in just a second. Values, needs, strengths, and joys. Here we go. Greens usually put things in a column, but not because they have to have it that way. It's just that we said values, needs, strengths, and joys, so it's like, okay, we'll put it in a column. It's not a big deal. They value independence. They value information. They value credibility. They value logic, time. They are the question askers. They can never get enough answers. One answer spurs another question. They love new ideas. They are usually intellectuals, and their value is usually time alone. All right? Their strengths. What are the strengths of our green people? They are very curious. Green people will sit and eat breakfast and devour the back of the cereal box. Just read it and wonder how they came up with all that stuff. They also read encyclopedias for fun. I have a friend who does algebra problems to relax. She's green. They are research-oriented. They're very logical. Again, their strength is they are the intellectuals among us. They're usually right because they ask so many questions and they get the answers and they have so much information. So they are usually right, which frustrates all of the rest of the population. They challenge others and they're very vocal about that. They're cool. They're very analytical. Greens are. Their needs. What do they need? They need information. They need lots of information. They need answers to all of their questions, but they never get to the bottom of their question list. They need time. They need challenges. They're your kids in school who are bored because they've learned all this stuff, and so they need challenges. They need independence. They need different and new ideas. They need my questions answered, and they need space. They don't need a lot of chatter. Who chatters? Blues. They need things analytical. Who is not analytical? Blues. The majority of greens marry blues. And there you have almost irreparable marriage situations. Seriously. God can do anything. God can do anything. But I'm very serious here. The ones who come into his office who usually can't be fixed are the greens. Because here's the deal about the blue. They're all feelings. Greens are all facts. Blues are all people. Greens are all facts. Greens don't like emotion. Blues are all emotional. What attracted that green to that blue in the first place becomes what makes that green dislike that blue intensely. And what they don't know about the blues are, blues will cry and think it's my fault, and they'll try to fix it, and they'll come back, and there'll be another big thing, and they'll get hurt, and they'll cry, and they'll try to fix it, and they'll come back. But finally, one day that green pushes them up against the wall, and whenever they do, they explode, and you don't get it back. Ever. Greens have to be extremely careful about how they interact with blues. And unfortunately, they marry them most of the time. And it's already reached the point of no return by the time it gets to a pastor's office or a counselor's office. Their joys. What is the joys of a green? The joys of a green, they love challenge, they love new ideas, they are usually your debaters, they love research, and they love the big picture. Okay, let's move on. How do you speak to greens, or how do greens talk? How greens speak. They rely on the facts, they ask many questions, they say things only once, and you should have gotten it. Let's not be redundant here. They avoid small talk. Who loves small talk? Blues. Okay. All right. Are you guys say it's not about me? Yeah, you got to remember. You got to remember. All right. They take a long time to make up their minds. They love to argue both sides of an issue just because they know all the information. So if you start taking their side, sometimes they'll just go around to the other side and start being, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. Have you heard them? And you want to go, oh, you are the devil. You know I'm kidding. It's not about me. They use a large vocabulary because they know the big words. They wander from idea to idea. They're your pun users. That's not punny. They love puns and they play with words or word meanings. They take a logical approach. They refuse subjection. They avoid stating what they believe to be already obvious, and it irritates them if you state it. They worry, though, that they're not being understood because they know they're overly technical. And this concerns them. And so in courtship, when that blue has sympathy for them, that's what attracts them to the blue because they worry that they're not being understood. Oh, the blue got it. I think I love you. They get married. They state things in overly technical terms. Don't get a computer programmer in to teach a seminar on how to use WordPerfect. You're not the person to do it. Get a secretary to teach how to use WordPerfect. Get the programmer to program it. Okay, they're very, very technical. They're very smart. They're unaware of the nonverbal body language of others. They don't really like nonverbal body language. So let me stop here. You're a blue church. You hug. I love it. I love it. I think it's wonderful. I love it. You're so loving. What about the greens who come in here? They probably don't stay. They probably don't stay. Because if your emotional worship hasn't turned them off, the contact will turn them off. That's why it's so important to try to figure out that person first. So that you don't abort the process God is trying. Isn't it amazing God put his plan with human beings? Isn't that amazing that he trusted us with his plan with all of our faults?
Question.
Mm-hmm.
You started off by saying that we are who we are.
Yes.
But oftentimes, culture
Yes.
or family or church or whatever,
Education.
right, can vary who you are.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. How do you bring out who they are?
We will talk about that at the end. But I will say this right now, so because I don't want to forget it. I'm telling y'all have to remind me of these questions. You ask them their employment. You ask them what they like to do in their spare time. You ask them, you learn how to ask them questions that draws out, and if their answers are short and clipped, and their employment is definitely going to be a key. Because a green person most likely is going to be in a research type situation, a technical type situation. They're usually your techies. They're your especially in this age of technology, scientists, research, lawyers. A lot of lawyers are green because they're very technical. So you learn to know professions, and then you talk to them, ask them questions, and you can draw it out of them that way.
Professionally, I'm just concerned because I feel like sometimes that's getting at what do I want to do versus what I'm doing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well,
So,
it would be like, hi Sam, what do you do? I am
right, but I would consider myself fortunate to be doing something I like.
and
Right.
what I would say Do you enjoy that? Is that your long-term goal? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know? And so, really, I mean, but, you know, a lot of times you can tell from body language, really, you can a lot of times. But if you know, the profession doesn't give you the total thing, but you can just ask them, is this what you've always wanted to do? Is this what you get in, you just ask those questions. Or greens are not going to offer the information, but blues will. They'll start offering the information when you don't ask much. And I mean, that's not a bad thing. It's just that you learn, you just learn. And you know what they value. And so you put your preferences in the background. Now, your preferences are very important in a marriage, as are your spouses. So at those times, you can learn to blend your preferences. But when you are meeting strangers in this church situation, in this leadership situation, it's not about you at all. It's about you learning them, putting your preferences in the background, and approaching them on what you know about them. All right, let's move on real quick, and it'll be better probably if we have time for questions at the end after you've heard all four, because you'll be able to see where we're going with all that. Okay, how do we speak to greens? Use logic. Blues, please use logic. Don't use feelings. All right, get right to the point. Golds don't have trouble with that. Golds can you'll find usually green people have a gold second, or a gold person will have a green second. The conflicted people are the ones who have like green as their top color and blue as their second. Because they're constantly trying to figure their own stuff out. You know, they're conflicted. Use proven references and facts. Be willing to debate issues without getting emotional. If you're in a green-blue marriage, understand, approach them on their turf, blues, because your emotion shuts them down. Greens, understand if they cannot contain the emotion. Deal with that. This is who you married. This is what we try to do in counseling. Many times it doesn't work, but this is what we try to do. Keep the conversation relevant. Ask meaningful questions. Talk about the actual data. Show sincere appreciation for their ideas. Focus on how they can use their intelligence to solve a problem. Blues don't have to be used, greens don't have to be used up front. If they know that they have worked out this situation and got this stuff working for us tonight, they can go sit on the back row and be fine with that. They don't have to be used up front. Blues are more sensitive about up front, and so are oranges, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, focus on how they can use their intelligence. Avoid talking about feelings, and talk about how they can keep improving things. Okay, very good. Let's move to the last one. The reason why we save oranges to last is because in a workshop situation, the oranges would have checked out and left long ago if you let them be first. This way it was forced, you force them to keep their attention on everybody else, and you usually put them in the back of the room, you know, because they're all together in the workshop thing. And you put them in the back of the room and you just let them get on their cell phone and do whatever they need to do until it's their turn. And then when it's their turn, the show has started. All right, oranges. Our values, our needs, our strengths, and our joys. Let's go. Woo! That's always number one on the chart. Fun. They are all about fun. They want things in action. No list and no columns for them. They have courage and they have no fear. They will jump off a cliff and on the way down say, whoo, how far is it down here? Is there going to be something that'll catch me when I fall? And they don't think to ask until they're mid-flight. All right? They are easygoing. They hate rules. Who loves rules?
Orange.
Uh-oh. We have a problem. Golds love rules. Oranges hate rules. So the golds are in charge of the education system. So all of the kids who hate rules, what happens to them? You're bad. You're not worth anything. I'm going to punish you. It's not about me. They are very independent. They're very adaptable. They can do anything. They love change for the sake of change. They are party people. All right? They are persuasive. They use words, a lot of words. Just do it. They're very, do it again. They're very attentive. Press it again. Yeah, we're going to do it another way because we just like change. All right? And The bottom one, they love challenges. These are your orange people, okay? Your showboats. How do oranges speak? They always say just the right things. They use language as a tool to make their point. They dominate what is being said. They cut in on others. They interrupt frequently. They make decisions quickly. They want to know what has been done already. They want to limit the conversation to the basics. They're clever. They're quick-witted. They move from item to item quickly. But they embellish a story or a situation by exaggeration or jokes. They cut to the heart of a problem. But they create energy and excitement. They concern themselves with how soon things can get done. Where me?
You're killing me.
What color are you, Brother Staten?
I think I'm orange.
I hate to tell you this, but I think you're fluorescent.
That's scary. That's scary.
With your number 2 being very high blue right up there underneath your arms. Are you getting what your pastor is?
Yes.
Okay, that's very important. Are you getting what his wife is?
Yes.
Okay?
Thank God.
Yeah, there you go.
She's holding it all together.
How should we speak to oranges? Let's go to how should we speak to oranges right here.
Probably just in tongues.
Cut to the heart of the problem.
Just talk in tongues to them and forget it.
Give them the straight stuff. Be bold and say what's on your mind. A blue's going to get their feelings hurt and cry, but the orange is going to, they'll get mad and they'll say something and then they're fine. They're over it. They're not going to harbor anything. Keep the conversation lively or they're going to go to their cell phone. Keep an agenda moving and change it up. Talk about getting things done now. Praise them for the things they do and focus on action.
Yeah.
That's how you speak to oranges. Oh my. I know. I believe the statistic, and the Greens here are going to question me on this, and I don't have the answer in front of me. But I believe the statistic is high, like in 96, 97% of our prison system is made up, the prisoners are made up of orange. This was originally created for the prison
I told you
system.
if I wasn't here, I'd be in jail.
But let's talk about why. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about why. I told you that education is a gold system. So when a child is born and they go through their toddler years, they're free to play and to discover who they are. But the minute they get in school, they have to become basically gold. They have to have structure. What happens is if their number is so high that they cannot really do that well, if they have a high blue, that's okay, because they will love the teacher. She sees that they're loving. They want to please her. Even if they're a little bit bad, they'll bring the apples to her. She loves, so she'll pass the blue.